What is up? Here for some coffee and, well, morning oracle reading. This is actually exciting for me because I've never actually went live here on YouTube. Normally I go live on my Instagram, but I figured it was time for a change. Now, first off, I'm just going to do a one card reading, or one card draw, shall I say. Probably going to have to advertise about this a little bit more before. And to any viewers who stop by, ask questions, it's time for chat. Also, the card that I got is really glare. Skull of Flowers, creating through the ashes. I mean, depending on what you're going through, honestly, to me, this, I've always associated this with, or I've always called this the Phoenix card, because it's basically saying, you know, no matter what you're going through in life, you're going to rise. You know, you're going to start again. It almost is like the Death card, but and the simple fact, you know, and like butterflies. I recently learned yesterday, I watched a video about a flower poppy. Fire poppy. There we go. It is a specific type of poppy that grows in California, and it actually only grows after wildfires. They're extremely rare, and normally they literally their blooms, their lifespan is 24, I think, to 48 hours, and then poof. But it's something to do with the smoke. If I remember correctly, it's something to do with the smoke that somehow activates the seeds, because when the seeds, they can lay dormant for years. But it's basically that. Sometimes, you know, things fall apart, or friendships don't work out, relationships don't work out, jobs don't work out, plans don't work out. And, you know, it's not necessarily for a negative thing. It's, thank you. Have an awesome day too. But it's, you know, sometimes not necessarily bad things, but negative things do have to happen for a positive out thing. You know, things have to be cleared away for new things to present. And that's basically creating through the ashes, rising above them. You know, after your garden has been burned down, you know, what do? You know, you replant, you regrow. So, hope that resonates. It's actually kind of cool. I haven't really done that many readings like this. And this is also, I will put a link of these cards of the author and the creators, but it is the Halloween Oracle. Oh, well, I'm glad you stopped by, and I hope you know, like it. Ask any questions you want. I'm bored. I was bored as well. But I like Oracle cards better than I like. Well, I resonate with Oracle cards more than I resonate with later with the Tarot. I don't know why. So, but And then I also recently realized or learned that the flower that I am actually drawn to the most, which is the Egyptian blue lotus, is actually not a lotus. It is technically a type of water lily. I did not know that. But through that are one of the reasons I use the fleur de lis sign all the time is because I'm always drawn to it. Well, of course, a lot of people know that it stands for royalty and stuff, but it's also linked to lotuses and water lilies because, I mean, you start out at the lotuses and water lilies. They start out growing at the bottom, the muckiest of muck, the bottom of the lakes and lakes and ponds. And what do? They have to go through a bunch of shit basically, and then they blossom, and on top, they transform. And it's so weird because a lot of the things that I've like symbols or places that I like or I've been drawn to through my practice and spirituality and me evolving and growing with that. I've actually learned that a lot of them actually are linked, or they either share the same symbols. The fleur de lis also can be linked with Hecate, the three-faced goddess. I'm Hecate. I don't really, when it comes to gods and goddesses, I don't like using the term that I worship them. I commune with them. And the simple fact, I also commune with ancestors. I commune with a lot of things, but I say commune because I don't follow traditionally where, you have one pantheon, or depending on your path, you have one pantheon. No, I mix my pantheons. If depending on the need or depending on what I'm doing, I'll, do research, find a god or goddess that I resonate with and call upon their help, or just ask them to join me and, watch over. Freya's one that I use a lot because I have cats. And I've been told multiple times that Freya energy, or Freya has, she's been on the property watching over the cats. So, and that came out of the nowhere when one of my old friends told me that. Came out of nowhere, but like it resonated with me perfectly. And that's one thing I do want to say. If you're new to the craft, or if you're curious and you want to start, some of the best advice that I can give is, for one, study. Study, literally practice for a year and a day before you do anything big. I mean, you can, I would suggest before casting a circle and invoking the elements or invoking the watchtowers, however you want to word it, or drawing down the moon or invoking a god or goddess, before you do any of that, study and research for a year and a day. Basically, the way that I like to describe it is an artist. Yes, true enough, you can pick up the brush and just go. But if you study, learn brush technique, shading, stuff like that, basically learn the proper way of handling and using the tools. And when I mean tools, I don't mean Athames and stuff like that, because literally one of the most powerful tools you have is your finger. Yes, that's right, your finger. So you don't need all these fancy tools you see in movies and books. Nothing has to be expensive. You don't have to spend $1,000 on an Athame over a $5 Athame at a flea market. It doesn't work that way. It is the energy and the intent that you bring to that tool. But with that said, at least study a year and a day. That way you understand how the tools work. And then after that, after you have a good foundation of knowledge and how to use the tools, build your house or paint your canvas however you want. With me, I do not stick to one path. I basically, I don't even like calling myself. I used to call myself, because when I say witch, people are like, they look at me like I'm crazy, and then it automatically goes to Wiccan or pagan. Those are like the two things that most people go to. And starting out, when I first started this and first started my journey, I was Wiccan. I started out Wiccan, and then over time I realized that wasn't really for me, so I would just say pagan. And here recently, in the past, I would say year, last year and this year, I've actually just started saying that I'm a witch and I'm not pagan. I'm just spiritual. I'm a spiritual witch. I believe there are truths in all religions. Um, and I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything. I know what happens when I die, or any of that, because every single day my views on my spirituality, my world, the world, they change. They go back and forth. There are some things that stick with me and some things that change, but that's life. That's us trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and why the fuck are we here. But I have kind of actually most magic wise, mine would I like root magic, folk magic, Appalachian magic, uh granny magic, cunning folk. I like stuff like that. Um and most of my craft, it looks like it would be Appalachian folk magic, or even voodoo or hoodooish. Voodoo is actually something that I've gotten very, very curious about here. I've always been curious about it, but my curiosity has been piqued recently. But and this is very important if anybody sees this. When it comes to certain paths involving the doing and practicing of magic, um, don't just find a spell online or find a spell in a book and just do it, because there are some things that you may not believe necessarily, but there are also, I've come to find out and learn that there are some paths you don't have to believe in for it to work. In my opinion, voodoo and hoodoo is one of them. The difference and this is theoretical, this is just stuff out of my head, so no one like attack me and say I'm wrong or anything, just my opinion. When it comes to magic, say a curse, for example, the only reason a curse works is because if I come up to you and say, yo, you're cursed, your brain, depending on how you think, most people though in general would do this and do this. They will associate every single little bitty thing that they would consider bad or negative that happens to every single one of us every single day. But they would associate that, or you would associate that with a curse. Or, it would automatically go back to, oh, I'm cursed. So actually what you're doing is when somebody tells you you're cursed, you're actually feeding the curse itself. So see, you yourself are giving that thought that you have been cursed power. So, and that's not always true. There are some legit true curses, but I'm not getting into that. Voodoo and hoodoo, on the other hand, you can go to a hoodoo shop or a voodoo shop and light a candle thinking you know what it's for, and just basically not only do your research when either dabbling in other paths, or when you're curious, do your research, and above that, respect. Like, if you're doing something new that has been around for thousands of years, go with it with respect. Try to be as respectful as possible. That's one reason that I haven't really tried to dive into voodoo and hoodoo, because I know voodoo and hoodoo, or my understandings about it is, it's one of those that's taught by a practitioner. It's kind of passed down. So, I mean, yeah, I can pick up a book, and do research, but at the same time, there are some things that kind of need a little hands-on practicing from somebody who knows what they're doing. Like shamanism, for example. There's a book series out by Pinzak, the author of Pinzak. Amazing. It's the Temple series, and I believe the second or third, no, the third one is the Shamanic Journey, and that that entire series is incredible. And honestly, if you're new to the craft and you're curious about it, start with his books, because he's not one of these authors in with a lot of new age books, mainly for specific paths. I'm not going to throw anything out there, but a lot of the authors word it as in basically you do it this way or it doesn't work. That's not always true at all. There's a reason it is called the craft, as in it's unique to every single person. It's like a fingerprint. But um start with that's a very great book series to start with. But I was doing the shaman one because I've always been drawn to the Native American, Native American, and then also shamanism. I know they're two different things, but I did a shadow journey because I thought I was ready. And in shamanism, one of the first things you have to do is you have to face your shadow self and, you know, understand it and basically get on a balance, be balanced with it, basically. Well, I thought I was prepared. Needless to say, after this meditation, I realized I was not. And that does happen in the craft. You can prep a spell, prep a ritual, and do something big and think you're ready for it. And I'm not saying it's going to go horribly wrong, but one of my first experiences with like a, a lot of energy, I was doing a ritual, and this is, I would say, on my second, third year, and I got a little cocky, I guess. Honestly, I was doing a ritual, and I was in a circle that I had spent months, this ritual space that I'm talking about, I had literally spent months up to a year working on it, specifically getting it perfectly. I'd hand dug a fire pit in the middle of it, and I was burning a fire. Well, I had this stepping stool out there, and I stepped up and went to release the last offering of herbs that I'd picked. And I went to release energy in the goddess form. And let me tell you that this is one of the most defining moments still to this day that has to do with the craft and my experiences. In the simple fact, I released the herbs and I released the energy into the goddess stance. And at the corner of my eye, I started seeing little black spots that like started connect. Basically, I blacked out. But in that second, when I looked up and where directly above, no trees, no clouds in the sky, I could see all the stars. It's fucking perfect. But when I looked up for a split second before I actually passed out, I felt like I was connected to everything. Like I was one with everything. And then I woke up and I was like, what? Dazed, confused. I passed out and hit the ground so hard. The stick that I landed on, I had an impression in my back. Literally, when I woke up, it literally felt like somebody had picked me up and hawk slammed me down to the ground. And I was dazed, I was confused, and completely out of it. Well, it was still an amazing positive experience, but it was a very important experience because it was also, I learned probably 5 to 10 years later by talking to another practitioner, that was basically, I I took in too much energy before you know I was truly ready for it. And that was basically like I got a taste of it and it was too much, and bam, I had to ground myself basically. Or I got grounded, put it that way. Literally. But no, the craft is, it's amazing. And even if you don't want to practice it and you just kind of want to, you're curious about it, pick up a book, read it. You don't have to be a witch. You don't have to be a witch to incorporate or raise your vibrations, to just be open spiritually, you know. And even if you're Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, depending, no matter what your faiths are, I want to word this correctly. no matter what your religion or beliefs are, you can always read and be curious about other religions and other spiritual paths and other beliefs, you know. And it goes back to what I said. There are truths in all religion. And honestly, if you want to get down to it, the gods and goddesses of every religion and faith, I honestly personally believe, also by another author, she put it the best way, Kate something, I think it's Kate West, but basically imagine all the religions or the gods, goddesses, the things, the deities that are in those religions. Basically imagine it like a disco ball. It's all the same thing, but depending on what part of the world you're in, it's a different face. Same energy, same entity, just different face. And that's where it goes back to there are all truths in religion. That doesn't make all religions true, but there are truths in all religions. So yeah, that's my live. Um, to anybody who did view it, thank you. To anybody who does view it, if you like what you saw or like what you heard, subscribe, give me feedback, comments. I really didn't read that many Oracle cards, but I didn't really have any viewers. So, anyways, I will be doing this. Hopefully I want to try to do it once a week just to see. And yeah. Until then, I hope everybody has a great morning or night or evening, wherever you're at. And yeah, and peace.